All right, hello to all of you, my fellow natalists, and hello also to any natalist haters out there. Welcome. All right. I love being hate watched live. I also want to thank my husband for unshackling me from the stove so I could be here today. He's so good to me. Thank you, honey. Okay, there is a Flannery O'Connor quote that I used on the first page of my book, Domestic Extremist. Push back against the age as hard as it pushes against you. And I think that's why we're all here. And in this talk I'm about to give, I think I might actually be pushing back on some of you a little bit. And so I apologize. When I spoke at this conference in 2023, I made the case that the easiest way to raise birth rates was to make motherhood great again, to somehow convince more fertile young women to start families. For those of you who only speak NPR, that means convincing America's uterus havers to remember that they have uteruses before it's too late. Did it work? Well, it's too soon to say, but I did try to do some research, and some reports indicate that 2024 actually did have a slight uptick in births in America. Bad news, it was just the anchor babies from the illegal immigrants. I'm going to use my brief time to quickly address three things. First, why are so many young women rejecting marriage? Second, can technology save them? And finally, some of my thoughts on why approaching life from a more trad direction may actually really be our best shot at fixing this crisis. Okay, so there are some in the media, probably some people here, who think I'm a far-right extremist. I think it's because I had 5 kids with the same lucky guy. But let me quickly explain what I believe, and then everyone can decide. First, I believe that if a baby could choose, he or she would choose to be born to married parents who are their, ideally, biological mother and father. A baby would choose to have siblings, and they would choose to be with their mother as much as possible instead of hand it off to strangers to raise. And this is where I get into trouble, because I also think that mothers should aspire to be with their babies, even if they aren't able to in practicality, and not treat a baby's demands like crushing inconveniences or career suicide. And finally, yes, I think liberal feminism has mostly backfired. It promised women liberation from the patriarchy, but delivered only, really, enslavement to their jobs, genetic suicide, and a lifetime addiction to narcissism and consumerism, and you can see this everywhere on social media. Okay, but here's what I don't believe. I don't think women should be submissive to their husbands, okay? You can see me, I'm not, he doesn't control me, or treated as inferior beings, or obviously abused or mistreated in any way. My recent book reviewer for the Washington Post, she didn't love my book. I mean, are you shocked? She claimed that by encouraging women to get married, I was denying and even ignoring the terrible things that happen to women in marriages, like domestic abuse and even marital rape. Yes, those things unfortunately exist and obviously are terrible. But this is a common misperception that liberal feminists have, is that they think all men are rapists, especially your conservative husband. Maybe because the only men they know are male feminists, and if you've met any, you know. You want more proof that the Washington Post is really fake news? The reviewer also described my kitchen as suspiciously stage-like and one I never seem to clean. First of all, when did she break into my house, I wondered. And second, my kitchen is the opposite of stage-like, my husband can confirm. We have 5 children, 4 of them are teenagers, very messy, and a bunch of big dogs. But she was right about one thing. It does look like I never seem to clean it. Okay, so what is wrong with women? The default factory setting of American women these days is to jettison marriage and family in favor of what can be called living their best lives. The new Snow White movie has reimagined the princess as a political leader who don't need no man. A recent article in the Wall Street Journal that some of you may have seen bears this out. Why are women not getting married? Women are no longer interested in being brides. Marriage and even falling in love has been reduced to a side quest. a game no one wants to play because they don't like the prizes and they think they can't win anyway. The star of Snow White, Rachel Zegler, made headlines when she described the original Prince Charming as her stalker. Quote, this is from the Wall Street Journal article. A 2022 Pew survey showed only 34% of single women were looking for romance versus 54% of single men, 20% gender gap there. Young women tout their boy sober status on TikTok, where they've given up on, they've quit men, just like an alcoholic would quit drinking. Dating apps make people feel like there might always be a better option, said Melissa Kearney, an economist at the University of Maryland. A 2023 AEI survey of college-educated women found that half blamed their singlehood on an inability to find someone who meets their expectations. Less than a quarter of single men said the same thing. Meanwhile, popular millennial fashion bloggers have been posting about Zoomer girls who wear what they call man repeller outfits. Maybe you've seen some of these. I live in LA, I see them all the time. These are young women who purposely wear ugly or unflattering outfits in order to ward off male attention, which is sort of the opposite of, when I'm Gen X, that's the opposite of what we would do. But actually, that's a smart survival strategy for girls living in London and Berlin. One popular man repeller fashion account on Instagram posted that she wonders if these trends are, quote, representative of the growing divide between American Gen Z men and women politically. Perhaps women are participating in these trends out of exhaustion with men's behavior, more generally, or perhaps resentment for men's contributions to the current political climate. In other words, this is fuck you fashion as revenge for Trump. But maybe this trend is helpful. These outfits might save you time and heartache. If you encounter a girl with green hair dressed like an Oompa Loompa or Snow White, run. So instead of trying to woo the Rachel Zeglers of the world over, I propose we focus our support on young women who might actually like men and be interested in forming long-term relationships and having families. I was curious to know how big this cohort was, so I asked, of course, Grok. Voting for a Republican is one very crude way to guess how someone might feel about having, let's say, more than 2 kids and getting married. So that's the filter I used. Grok estimates that the number of women between the ages of 18 and 35 who voted for Donald Trump in America is around 7 million. These are the women, these 7 million, unmarried and married, who we should be doing our best to try to help. The others are likely to have Planned Parenthood punch cards and IUDs cemented to their cervixes. They're tough nuts to crack, in other words. So will technology save us? None of the numbers are great. We all know the numbers. We've all seen the charts all day. And some people have already crunched all these numbers and decided that new technology, from Tinder to CRISPR, will make the baby printer go brr. But we know that dating apps have really mostly succeeded in one thing: depressing the marriage rate and causing heartache. And another thing, if you count the chlamydia epidemic. Reproductive technology, as Razib Khan mentioned earlier, for all its hype, represents only 2% of all births in the United States. In other words, IVF babies are a rounding error in the total number born each year. And couples who do IVF because of infertility have on average just 1.2 children. And of course, IVF is just the start. I'm told by all the tech geniuses around me that we are soon getting IVF for everyone, surrogate mills, embryonic genetic editing, and factory baby farms filled with matrix-style artificial wombs and more. I can't wait. You'll soon be able to have a baby well into your 60s, even your 70s, without a husband or a wife or a female of any species. Doctors will be able to germinate your embryos out of cuticle clippings off your big toe. There will be hydroponic grow rooms full of bespoke newborns on every corner. We'll have to give up on names and just call them by their number, which is what Elon Musk has already started to do. A quick note on IVF. I know it's a hot-button issue, very controversial. Unfortunately, I am a Catholic, and therefore I am not a huge fan of IVF, although I understand the compassionate reasons for it for people who have infertility, which is tragic. Like you guys, I have friends and family who I love and respect very much who have used IVF to build families. My best friend used IVF to build her family. I have IVF nieces in my own family. But like other Catholics, I do have serious moral qualms about the byproducts of the process. But don't worry, neither I nor J.D. Vance nor the Pope is going to outlaw IVF. That toothpaste is out of the fallopian tube. But I admit that I am relieved. I am not languishing in a cryolab at negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit. My feet get really cold at night. So in the end, we all know IVF isn't going to save us, and either is embryonic genetic testing, which I've been hearing a ton about lately. It's apparently coming very soon. IVF parents can already test babies for lots of things, genetic defects, hair color, eye color, and more. But let's be honest, how many of you or people that you know and love would have been left behind by this kind of testing? I'm sure I would have been. Imagine waiting for your mother to get your first test scores, like waiting for your SAT scores. The stakes are a little higher. What happens if you beat out all your siblings and make it out alive? Then one day you flunk 10th grade chemistry. Your parents paid an extra $20K to make sure you weren't a retard. You failed them. And what if you have bad skin or baby fat or a stutter? You can't throw a ball or run fast. You're not going to get an athletic scholarship to Harvard. Imagine giving birth to a carefully screened embryo and they die of childhood cancer. You get a refund? I worry that this sort of testing, like dating apps, may set parental expectations a little bit too high. It forces parents to judge their kids the way people judge each other on Tinder and Hinge. Just wait, you guys, until the Zoomer women have the power to test all their male embryos for height. Not a single male under 6 feet tall will ever be born again. Men 5'11" and under, bad news. You're all going extinct. If they find out their baby will have early onset male baldness, sayonara, Norwood. It will be a world filled with 6'3" super genius giga-chads with full heads of hair. This is the dystopian hellscape we're going to be living through. At best, these technological miracles will be the purview of the very rich and the very picky. None of it will materially increase the birth rate, in our lifetimes at least. And most women who do IVF stop after one because it is so very emotionally and physically exhausting, as you know if you have a friend or a family member who's gone through it. The cost, the invasiveness, the unpleasant optics, and the moral questions will stop most couples before they ever get close to beating the replacement rate. Let's set aside those pesky moral issues. The real problem with all the reproductive technology is, in a word, the hype. It's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Thanks to the promise of technology, you can wait as long as you want now, and so you do. You can postpone marriage indefinitely, and so you will. As we speak, millions of otherwise young and fertile women are being told they can wait, essentially forever, to start a family or find a guy to settle down with, as long as they can freeze their eggs or save up for emergency IVF or a surrogate in their 40s. They are literally being psyoped by the fertility industry into running out the clock until they run into the wall. No one is really telling them the truth, and if you try to, you get canceled. And the truth is that even with IVF, your chance of giving birth plummets dramatically as you get older. You can freeze your eggs, you can't freeze your body or your uterus. And the longer you wait, the fewer kids you end up having. So what about the trad option? Well, like the Lorax, let me speak for the trads. And by trad, I don't mean you're in your kitchen making sourdough. I've never made sourdough. My Washington Post reviewer thought I did. I mean mostly people who are doing this stuff the normie way, the old-fashioned way, the way the people that your parents did. The men whose testicles are not yet filled with microplastics, and the women who survived college with their body parts and minds intact. The real trads, of course, are not at all worried about the birth rate or population collapse. They don't know about any of this stuff, and they don't care. That's actually not why they're having their big families. They're doing it because they want to create something of value that goes far beyond their crypto wallet or their 401k. There are groups out there who have figured this out in time. This is the good news. We've all heard of trad wives, but do you guys know about the trad undergrads? I have one. If you want to see young people who are well on their way to beating the replacement rate, pay a visit to any Christian or Catholic college in America. Can't find a spouse? Go back in time and enroll as a freshman in Steubenville or the University of Dallas or Hillsdale. Every year, for an example, Thomas Aquinas College in Ojai, California, sends out a glossy school magazine filled with student wedding announcements. In the last issue I got this summer, I counted over a dozen weddings among newly graduated seniors out of a class of 100 kids. Don't see that at Penn or at Harvard. And boys coming out of schools like this are highly motivated to make themselves into the kinds of men that one of these girls might want to marry. Girls at these schools haven't spent 4 years getting blowjob tutorials on the Call Me Daddy podcast or in body count competitions with their bisexual polycules. My son goes to one of these trad colleges. He's going to watch 2 of his fraternity brothers get married this summer. Not to each other, of course. That only happens at Yale. Some Yale people there. Okay. Sorry, Yale. Okay, so what is the natalism movement about in the end? Is it about TFR, line go up at all costs, at any cost? Before I became Catholic, I asked a friend of mine who was Catholic, and she was pregnant with her 6th kid. I asked her how many kids she wanted to end up with. She said, as many as God wants me to have, and that blew my mind. Another good friend of mine was once asked why she had had 9 children. And I found her answer simple, but shockingly profound. I had them for them, she said. In the end, any healthy natalism movement must be about more than numbers and technology. It has to be about, in the simplest terms, maternal love. We should do it for our babies and out of our infinite love for them. And what children need most in the end is to be born to loving parents who treat parenthood like what it is, or what it used to be, a sacrificial, lifelong vocation. And to be born free of any expectations that they'll become a straight-A superachiever, or 1,600 on their SAT score, or a varsity athlete, or a billionaire founder. Just to be able to be. This is why I'm calling on people to start, and I excuse the expression, raw dogging their lives. In other words, to lean in to the zesty, natural process of meeting and mating and making babies. The term raw dogging, of course, is a very crude expression that originally meant having unprotected sex. I know you all have heard this. Then it became a meme to describe any life experience that you undergo without the aid of technology, enduring long airplane flights without earpods or watching movies, for example. It's just you experiencing life in all its ups and downs. To us, maybe that means trying to meet people in person, getting engaged your senior year of college, quitting taking chemical hormones and experiencing real natural physical attraction, getting off the dating apps, except for X, of course. And maybe it means stopping over-medicalizing and optimizing every single thing in your lives. And then maybe you too can raw dog your way to a big family. And if it's too late for you guys, don't worry, because a small army of trad kids are on the way. Because to make America great again, it's up to us in this room to raise great Americans. Thank you, guys.